Jai Bhagwan, everybody. My name is Dr. Satyavani Gayatri, and I'm an Ayurveda clinician and a yoga acharya. And I'm here today to share with you my personal journey, moving from disease to health, from depression to joy, and moving from anxiety to freedom. I truly believe inside of us we are all infinite, eternal, and whole. And my purpose in sharing my story with you today is so that you will acknowledge your infinity, your eternity, and your wholeness, and move from any states of imbalance to a state of pure balance and health. My story begins with being a competitive athlete and really moving towards potentially being a professional athlete. I was a swimmer and a triathlete, and one day while I was riding my bicycle in New York City on a training run, I got hit by a car, and that changed my life instantaneously. As a result of that accident, I went through 18 months of surgery and recovery and was told that I would never compete ever again. At that point in time, I was having an identity crisis. Who was I? I had absolutely no idea. My entire life had been spent in academics and in athletics. And then all of a sudden, one of those pieces, a very sacred piece, was taken away from me. And I had absolutely no idea who I was as a result of that. I went through a very serious time of self-examination, of major confusion about who I was. If I wasn't all of these things, then who was I? I was so used to attributing all of these labels onto myself. I was the triathlete, I was the competitive swimmer, I was the A student, I was the scholarship kid, I was the student athlete, I was the professional, all of these things. And then all of a sudden, in the blink of an eye, it was gone. And I had no idea what I was supposed to do, who I was. And that really brought me into a very, very deep depression, to the point where I felt very hopeless and at many moments in my life was suicidal. The depression was really heavy. And so, like anybody at my age at that point in time, I took the advice of my parents and I went to go see my doctor. And my doctor then led me to seeing a psychiatrist. And my psychiatrist then diagnosed me, because that's what was happening at that time, diagnosed me with bipolar disorder. And as a result of that, I was given a ton of medication. It was just one medication after another after another. You name it, I took it. And as I was taking that medication, I was getting more and more unhealthy. I was slipping deeper and deeper and darker. And I was also gaining a lot of weight. And so what I did is I used taking the medication and eating as coping mechanisms, and decided that this was my new identity. This is who I was going to be. And for a little bit there, I was actually quite comfortable with that. I was quite comfortable with being a victim. So as the darkness got heavier and the medication became more abundant, for lack of a better word, I would have these nightmares. And I remember waking up one morning, very early in the morning, about 2 o'clock in the morning, in a cold sweat, and having this realization in the back of my mind that this was not the way to live, that there was something more, that there was something else that I needed to do, that this process that I was going through that seemed very, very deep, very, very dark, was something that I needed to move out of, and that I was actually in this transformational space. It was like full of fire and full of heat that was pushing me to dig a little bit deeper and to really think about what it was that I was supposed to do next. I knew that I was not going to be the person it is that I was in the past. And in many ways, I was actually okay with that. But I did know that there was something more and that I had to figure that out. And the only person who could figure that out was me. My doctor couldn't do it for me. My parents couldn't do it for me. My boyfriend at the time couldn't do it for me. I had to do it for myself. And that's when I began this journey of exploration. I had no idea who it is that I was supposed to be. I didn't even know who I was, and was really distraught. And I remember one distinct day being in an occupational therapy session with my therapist, and we were at the end of the treatment cycle, so to speak, and she said to me, if you really want to get your full range of motion back, you should try this thing called yoga. And it was the most incredible conversation I had ever had. It was almost as if when she said that to me, there was this energy that came over my entire being. And I was like, I'm going to do that. And so then from that point on, literally the next day, I stumbled upon this yoga studio that was right near my work at the time. And I opened the door, walked in, and there was this gentleman that was behind the front desk, and he had this glow about him. And I was like, wow, I really need to figure this thing out. And I walked in and he asked me, hey, is there something I can help you with? And I said, what is this place? And he said that it was a hot yoga studio and that I was welcome to attend any class it is that I wanted to. So that evening I showed up and I took my first hot yoga class, and it transformed my life. And through that process, as we were practicing in that studio, there was also information that was being shared about the other Vedic sciences, of which I had no idea about at the time. And there was this thing that kept getting repeated. It was called Ayurveda. And I was like, I gotta know what that's about. There's something interesting there. And I think I've shared with other people before that I didn't even know how to say the word or how to spell it, etc. But I remember running promptly after class one evening to Barnes & Noble bookstore in Union Square in New York City. And I went to the information desk and I asked the woman behind the desk, I need a book on this thing called Ayurveda. And she knew exactly what it was that I needed. And she said, I've got just the thing for you. So she took me through all of the bookshelves, and there was this tiny bookshelf that was kind of considered alternative medicine or self-help. And remembering now that this was the early 90s, so there wasn't a whole lot about this kind of area of study in popular mainstream culture. So she handed me this book, and it was called Ayurveda for Beauty Care by Melanie Sachs. And I was like, this is it. This is the thing that I have been looking for. And so I grabbed the book and I purchased it. I brought it home, and it unfolded this entire world of health and wellness from a completely different perspective that was really rooted in very ancient wisdom that was 5,000 years old. So after reading the book many times, I went to go see my first Ayurvedic doctor, who was located in San Mateo County in California, just outside of San Francisco. And that appointment transformed my life. She spoke to me about all of the qualities it is that uniquely made me me. I was no longer in a box. I was a unique being. She explained to me the doshas and the elements and how those things come together to create both disease and balance. And I could literally trace all of these things to every single medical thing that I had experienced. I understood digestion better from a much larger, more ancient perspective and what that meant. I understood why it was that I was experiencing pain on the mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual level. And Ayurveda opened that up for me in that very moment. One of the things that I want to also make clear is that this was not an overnight journey by any stretch of the imagination. From the time of my accident when I was 19 years old in New York City to the time that I found this very special book, to the time that I saw my first Ayurvedic doctor, about 6 years had transpired. And from the time that I saw my first Ayurvedic doctor and opened up this entire world of newness, of a new way of looking at health and wellness on all of the levels, physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, that entire journey has continued. And to this day, it's 30 years in the making. It wasn't something that, it was this quick fix and, here's a pill and take it and everything is magical. It wasn't that at all. It took years and years of hard work. It took years of self-discovery. It was a lot of sweat, a lot of blood, a lot of tears. and something that I was really, really committed to, because I knew that there was something more that I was supposed to grow into. I knew that there was something more that I was supposed to share. I knew that there was something more that needed to be put out there. And the only way that I could do that was by experimenting with myself. I truly believe as a clinician that the only way that you can really work with people, that you can touch their lives, that you can help motivate them to make the important changes that they need to make, is by experimenting on yourself. I had to do the work in order to evolve into what it is that I do today. A lot of folks want someone else to do the work for them, and it just doesn't work that way. You have to do it yourself. I had to come to the bottom of the barrel. I had to hit absolute rock bottom in order to understand that I needed to make a change. I needed to do something different. At this stage in my life, 30 years into these practices, I am my most joyful. I am so happy with what it is that I'm doing. I am happy with who it is that I am. And it's the most fulfilling experience ever. We cannot do in the world our work until we feel solid in ourselves. I can now answer the questions, who am I? I can now answer the questions of, what is my purpose? I can now answer the questions of, how do I transcend? How do I put that out into the world? Because of Ayurveda, I am so grateful for all of the experiences it is that I had in the past, because without them, there would have been no catalyst for me to connect to Ayurveda and this ancient wisdom. So if any of my story resonates with you, if there are pieces of it that you're like, yeah, that's me, there are many ways that we can connect. I am here to assist. And those ways are, you can come into the Ayurvedic Woman program, you can join the Ayurveda 108, you can come in for a consultation, you can listen to my podcasts, you can listen to my YouTube videos. Whatever it is that you need, I'm there to meet you where it is that you are. So are you struggling? Are you coping in ways that you know are not in your best interests? Are you in need of somebody to assist? Are you not living your best life? If so, let's connect.